everyone, and welcome back to the Rumcast. This is the podcast that talks all things rum-related with the people who love and shape it. My name is John Gulla, and with me to taste through some of the new hotness today from Alambique Serrano's lineup is Will Hookinga. And Will, before we get to that, I'm freshly back from a week in Las Vegas where I was there for a conference, and I have to say it was an interesting trip.
First time to Vegas, right?
Yeah. And we were actually staying quite a little bit of a ways off the strip, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the strip. But when I did, I wanted to tell you the one thing that struck me was there's a lot of bars, right? A lot of places to get booze.
There's a lot of places to get it for free, too.
Really? Well, I guess if you're a high gambler, right? You're betting high.
Oh, you don't even have to be betting high. You can just be, at the minimum tables. They'll bring you drinks all night.
Well, I'm not a gambler, so I didn't even do much of that. I think I lost $5 on slot machines that I didn't know what I was doing and just pushed a button and it was poof, it was gone.
Kenny Rogers over here.
Yes, I know when to fold them, Will, and fold them early. I did. Yeah. So I was going to say, I didn't see a whole lot of good rum. Now, maybe I wasn't looking in the right places, and maybe people can tell us a little bit. I did ask a little bit after the fact on our Discord and got some information on some good places. But one thing I did see, and I was going to ask you, because I know you've been there a couple of times, there was a frozen daiquiri stand every 25 feet. Yes. Oh my gosh. It kind of hurt me a little bit because I'm like, oh, there would be such a cool thing we could do with rum here and actually have some good rum and some good daiquiris. But no, it's all about the bright neon colored daiquiri, frozen daiquiris out there.
I forget which casino I was in last time I was there, but I remember, they have little signs because these casinos are massive, right? And so they have signs kind of pointing you like breadcrumbs to different things you can go to. And I forget which casino it was, but I had just finished losing some money on craps, and I saw signs. I think they said Rum Tavern on them, but it was rum spelled with an H.
With an H,
and
yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, wait a second. If they're spelling rum with an H, maybe this means this is they have a legit selection and they know about rum and stuff like that. And so I'm taking this winding, twisting path through the casino, dragging my buddies along with me who are on the trip. And I finally arrived to the end. It's this little corner of the casino where you would never go. And if memory serves correctly, I think it was literally just another one of those frozen daiquiri stands, essentially. So it was, not what I was expecting. And I did not end up purchasing anything there, but I will say I've heard from the tiki aficionados that the golden tiki is supposed to be pretty good, which I think there's a newer place that is on or near the strip. I can't remember if that's it or not. And then there's Frankie's Tiki Room, which I think has been there forever. I think I've heard it's kind of divey, kind of old school atmosphere. I haven't been to any of these places, but I just, for the people at home who are screaming there are good rum places in Vegas, I just wanted to give those places a shout out because I've heard good things about them.
Well, the one that I looked up prior to going just to try, I always do a quick cursory search of is there anything good in the area? And nothing really was coming up except for one that closed. And I can't remember the name right now. It's not coming to me, but I think it also had rum with an H, if I'm remembering right.
Interesting.
But yeah, it closed a year ago, I think, and that was the place that people were saying, hey, that's a good rum bar to go to. So,
okay.
Anyhow, yeah.
Well, fortunately, we are supplied with a lot of interesting rum to drink for this episode. The rums that you alluded to earlier from Alambique Serrano. And we don't always do these dedicated kind of tasting guide episodes, but we thought this was a good idea, because I think a lot of rum enthusiasts are talking about these rums right now. This is the Vita Nativa series, as you mentioned earlier, which is essentially it's a series of particularly noteworthy, I suppose, single casks and one blend from Alambique Serrano, which is the producer in Oaxaca, the Santa Maria Talisac region. We had on the podcast the Crassel family and Jason Cox, who is the guy who kind of partnered with the Crassel family, helped bring this brand to life of these really interesting aged rums. They also do the Cañada rum, which is an unaged cane juice rum from the same producer. And this is a producer that we talked about a lot last year. It's a producer that we talked a heck of a lot about on our year in review episode where we talk about our favorite rums of the year. So it's just it's someone that I think both of us are interested in. And so, you know, when they do something like a cool kind of interesting series like this, I know it got my attention when these bottles were announced. I was desperately searching for online retailers that would ship here, and I did end up with 2 of the bottles. And then we also got samples provided to us from PM Spirits, who is the importer for the brand. And so we're going to taste through 5 of these. And actually, there's 5 rums in the series. We have 4 of the 5 samples. There was one rum that was not included, which we can talk about when we get to it. But there was a special bonus that we received in the samples, which is an upcoming sort of an evergreen blend that Alambique Serrano is going to put out, which is going to be their first product like this, because everything that they've done so far has either been, you know, limited one-off blends or limited one-off single cask releases. So this is a Trace Años blend of rums aged at least, as the name suggests, 3 years. And we're going to start with that one. It's a very different rum designed for a different purpose, but I'm excited to talk about that as well. But I don't anything else like to tee this up about why it's interesting, why rum fans should look into these rums, be excited about them.
Yeah, you know, I guess the only thing I'll say is sort of ancillary to that is that Alambique Serrano has come out with a good amount of releases. Like, they've been prolific on the scene in the last couple of years. Like, they kind of came out of nowhere in a way, and I don't know that I don't want to undermine and say it the wrong way, but like, you didn't hear about them and then all of a sudden they burst on the scene, and there's so many different bottlings, and so it can be a little difficult sometimes to figure out, like, well, which one do I want to invest in and go for. So as we taste through these, I think the spoiler alert is we think they're a good product generally speaking, so you probably can't go wrong. But there are some real differences, and I'm excited to talk about some of that. Some of the ones I've tasted previous to this Vita Nativa series, and then also I think, you know, there's some things in the Vita Nativa series that are interesting that I will get into as well.
Yeah, a couple more things I'll say is that if I had, so I bought 2 of them just kind of sight unseen, basically. Like, I saw 2 that were available and looked interesting. I hadn't tasted anything, and I bought those. Now, having tasted the whole series, except for the one which we'll talk about, I would have made different purchasing decisions, actually. So we are going to taste through these live. I think I did a kind of a cursory tasting through the ones I hadn't had yet yesterday before the show, just to kind of get some initial impressions going. So we're going to revisit them and talk through. Yeah, like I think where people could use a little help is deciding which of these rums might be for you, because you know, most people are not going to go out and just buy all 5 of them. It gets to be a little expensive. The first 2 I bought were $99 at retail. Okay. This exercise caused me to really go on a search to find one more bottle, which we'll talk about when we get to it. And I was able to get that one for $84.99 online. So that was nice. But I will say the other, like, I've been kind of in the bag, figuratively, not literally. Not this, Alambique Serrano isn't paying me to say nice things about them, but I've been kind of a fanboy of them the last year. And I will say, when I saw the Vita Nativa series, my first instinct was to be excited for it, because the labels, I'll hold up, a couple, the 2 bottles that I have right now. The labels feature artwork of native life, essentially, which is, I believe, what Vita Nativa translates to. And each one highlights like either a different animal, or I could just say different flora or fauna on them. Mostly fauna, but some flora too with the
It's pretty
Cañamazo.
Cool.
They look really cool, very distinctive. Like I said, it's kind of like paintings on each one. So they're really neat from like a packaging standpoint. But as I thought about it longer, I was a little bit concerned because, you may remember a few years ago when the Hamden Endemic Bird series came out.
I know you're going with this. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't try all of those Endemic Bird series, but it was a limited release of, I think they were single casks, if I'm remembering correctly, and they each had, an endemic bird from Jamaica on the label, and they were just like extremely sought after secondary market prices like went insane. They were really expensive.
Yeah.
And when I got a chance to taste some of them, I was kind of like, these are good, but they're just kind of standard Hampton good to me. They weren't, it wasn't like, oh, these are like particularly really exceptional relative to other much lower priced stuff from Hampton that I've had before. I'm not saying that's a universal opinion. That was just my take on it. And so I was a little worried about the same thing happening with these, but I don't think it has so far. I haven't seen them unreasonably priced. I've seen a lot of people buying them, drinking them, immediately, posting reviews, posting their thoughts and stuff like that. So I think it's been a positive limited release so far. And, spoiler alert, I happen to like several of these quite a bit. Yeah. And I'm excited to talk about which ones we like the most and which ones we're a little lower on. So anyway, that's enough preamble. I think we can just, actually taste some of these rums now.
That's 2 spoiler alerts already. We can't have any more spoiler alerts before we just get into it here.
Yeah.
All right, so let's live La Vida Nativa and do this.
Very good.
Come
good
on!
line. You've been sitting on that one, I think. Well, before we live La Vida Nativa, we're actually going to start with the Trace Años blend.
Yes.
Because it is the Vita Nativa series is all cask strength. And this new upcoming blend, Trace Años, is 46.1% ABV. So as I was saying earlier, this is kind of designed to be the always available Alambique Serrano blend. And, maybe the blend, I'm guessing, will likely change and evolve a little bit over time. But this first one, it's a 12 cask blend of pot still rum and then Crassel column still rum. The Crassel column still is this custom designed still that the Crassel family invented basically and has been using for a very long time, this type of still. So they proofed this one down to 46.1% ABV. Like all of their rums, naturally fermented, cane juice, harvested right there. No additives in any of these rums, no added color, anything like that. I believe all of these rums, it's the Hava varietal of cane. And this one features steel and pine tank fermentation, all with ambient yeast. So no, added distiller's yeast or anything like that. Sometimes this will be called wild fermentation. The blend itself, it's 82% Crassel still rum, aged 38 months in new French oak, and 12% pot still rum, aged 40 months in new French oak. So kind of cool to get like the month by month blend breakdown because these are all rums that are at least 3 years, which is kind of the rule for age statements. So they can do a 3-year age statement, but it's interesting to know how far over 3 years some of the rums are. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I agree. I think it's nice to have that information and the split of the different stuff that they're doing with the Crassel still rum and the Alembic pot still. That's super cool to me to know and see how that might change in maybe a next blend that they do or something along those lines. I was also nice to see from them that a 46% ABV rum is a good entry point, in my opinion. Yeah. So for someone that is looking for something that's not going to blow their face off, maybe they're newer into rum, maybe they want to try something from this line that they want to warm into, I think this is a really good way to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think prior to this rum, they didn't really have kind of a starter rum from the Alambique line that you could share with someone who isn't already accustomed to drinking cask strength spirits. So I do think this is a nice, I was going to say training wheels rum, but that has like a pejorative context. I don't mean it like that at all, because I also think, I find myself increasingly gravitating to rums with these lower ABVs relative to cask strength, that are also above 80 proof, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a rum that you can relax with. It's a session rum, like Ian Burrell would say.
It's a session rum, right? Yeah. It's almost a different category in a way of an experience. So I'm with you there too. I still think 45, 46, up to about 50 is that range for me that I most appreciate. And then from there, you start to gradually get into that higher, different category. I've been nosing this for a while as we've been talking through it. And I have to say I get a dominant kind of note on it.
What is that?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yes, me too. Okay. Same thing, yeah. That's the big thing here for me. I will say I do get kind of a savory component as well that speaks to the underlying cane juice distillate. So it's not like it's totally covered up by that cinnamon toast crunch vibe.
Yeah,
but
well, it reminds me of cachaça in some cases.
Those Ambarana aged cachaças, which would make sense because that's also a cane juice distillate. So very inviting. Like again, I would feel completely comfortable passing a glass of this to someone who is a total newbie to rum, which usually an aged cane juice rum is not where I would start someone like that. But one like this that I think has a lot of familiar flavors, but also a little bit of that complexity underlying it.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is just based off the nose right now. But
I'm with you. Also, the fact that this is just 3 years aged, I don't know that I would have blindly guessed that, given I have a little less in the glass, given the color and the nose so far. Like, it feels like this might be something that was aged for longer.
Yeah, I'm holding my glass up to the camera for those watching on YouTube, because it's definitely, it's by no means the darkest. Some of the Vita Nativa ones are considerably darker, which is interesting because many of them are aged around, the same amount of time or less in some cases. But yeah, it's definitely like a deep gold. It could definitely pass for more than 3 years on the nose and the visual appearance. I get this in a lot of their rums, but it's almost like a menthol kind of note to it. This like herbal, like cool mint
I was going to mention
thing.
That. You're 100% on point, because I think it's the pine.
Maybe the pine tanks from the fermentation. Yeah.
I think. That's what I'm getting, because there's so some Amaro or Amari have this also. This certain types of Amaro have that pine element to them, and that's what I'm getting. This almost reminds me of an Amaro.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting, like, cross-category observation.
Well, it's sweet. So the nose is sweet.
Yeah.
Which is not a common thing you get from many noses, but this nose, I get sweet. And then I just went in for the first sip, and it certainly has an innate sweetness to it.
Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit of, that type of a drink.
Kind of like resinous, too, I'll say, on the nose.
Yeah,
like almost reminds me of being in a wood shop, but with like an interesting wood shop, not a wood shop where it's just like fresh wood shavings. It's not a sawdust kind of thing at all.
No, I get it. All
right, I should finally take a sip of this. A lot of depth of flavor for a 3-year, 46.1% ABV rum. I'll just start there. Like, this is not it. I feel like sometimes when we talk about these kinds of rums that are the more always available, lower ABV thing, it's almost like it feels like what's being unsaid is that, hey, if you're a super rum geek listening to this rum is not for you.
Right, but that's not what we're saying.
Yeah. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah. This is like, I'll definitely buy a bottle of this when it comes out and makes its way to my area, because it's just that. It's a rum you can reach for on, like, a casual night or whatever, where you don't want to blow your hair back, but you want something that's still delicious and complex. Not as complex as the Vita Nativa rums we'll discuss shortly, but it's not lacking in that department either for me.
No, it's not. It's like you said. It's bringing some flavor for that ABV, and it's a nice sip. It really is very good. I will say, to balance it out some, I think that piney or resiny flavor that kind of comes through is divisive for some.
Yeah.
I think some people do not like that type of thing, and some people do. I would not say this is like mint or menthol to the point of you can't taste anything else, but it's there, right? It's certainly there. And so, there are those, like I said, people who react to that or don't care for that. Maybe this is not the one to pick for you, but if you are not sensitive to that, or if you want to try it, I think this is a great rum.
Yeah, I will say the dominant notes for me on the palate are still the kind of like cinnamon toast crunch type notes relative to the other stuff that I've mentioned and that you've mentioned. For me, those are much more background notes on the palate, and I get them more on the nose than they show up in the palate. Those sort of background notes, like, they're there but don't come through quite as much as I expected from the nose. So it's like bordering on like a comfort food type of rum, which I mean is a nice thing. So yeah.
I would have, depending on the price, I would have no problem using this in a few cocktails also, and I think it would bring some really unique and fun elements to it. So,
Oh man, like a rum Manhattan or an old fashioned even. I think this would do really well in that. I think
or
it's
a black
got
Manhattan. Yeah.
a black Manhattan could be interesting,
Yeah.
but for me, a lot of times in rum Manhattans, if the rum isn't assertive enough, it can really get lost in that drink for me.
Yeah.
But I think this one could stand up to that vermouth. Yeah. All right. Do we want to get into
stuff.
the Vita Nativa now?
Heck yeah. I got my Ricky Martin ready. Dun, 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 dun. Funny short story. I thought I was Ricky Martin's cousin at one point in my life.
wait, what?
So I'm a quarter Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And my mom was born in Puerto Rico, and she had told me growing up that I had a cousin in Menudo, which is the boy band from Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
And Ricky Martin was in Menudo.
Uh-huh.
For a very small amount of time, is my understanding. I'm not an expert. But so when I had asked her, at some point, she said, oh, his name is Ricky Martin. And I was like, what? Right? I'm like, no freaking way. That's when he blew up in the late 90s, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. Well, it turns out there were two Ricky Martins in Menudo. And my cousin was the non-big famous Ricky Martin. So
that could have been your big break if it had been the other Ricky Martin. Wow, that's a great story. I can't believe it took us over 5 years of podcasting for me to learn that you once thought you were Ricky Martin's cousin.
For a hot minute.
I'm going to start introducing you to people as my co-host and also the cousin of Ricky Martin, because that part is still true.
I was going to say, it's not inaccurate. Yeah.
You're like George Costanza telling people that you're driving John Voight's car. But it's John John Voight.
Yep. I don't even know. You're right. The spelling may be different, actually.
All right, so
what are we moving on to here?
We're moving on to Pico Canoa. This is the one blend from the Vita Nativa series, which I was excited when I saw one of these was a blend. I don't remember. I know I've talked about this on our Patreon happy hours, but for me, my favorite Alambique rums have all been the blends that they've released. They've done a ton of single casks. Like a lot of them are for particular stores or for particular clubs, things like that. And those have been kind of hit or miss for me, the single casks. And the hits have never hit as strong as the blends that they released have. Okay. That's not a slight on the single casks. For some reason, the blends just really resonate with me. Yeah. And I think, what Jason's been able to do on the blending front, it has been really impressive. So when I saw that there was a blend in this series, I was like, yeah, sign me up. And then for reasons that are still unknown to myself, when I found these for sale, I ordered 2 single casks and left the blend out. So anyway, I tried this for the first time yesterday and I was super excited. Did you have any expectations of this one going in? Because I know people have been talking about it on the Rumcast Discord. And so I'd kind of seen this had been kind of a standout as being very distinctive among the series. So did you have any of those expectations going in?
No, I didn't. So I had seen kind of some of the comments, but sometimes I try to block those out because I don't want to be influenced. Yeah. But I will say in this case, I agree with them. So when I finally got to try it, I was like, oh yeah, they nailed it. And I think also the happy hour, somebody had mentioned it on the happy hour as well. And it couldn't leave my mind after I was tasting it during the happy hour quickly. And I was like, yep, that is exactly what it is. I wanted to, before we move into the nosing, I wanted to say you make a really good point about the blends. We typecast, it may be the right word, the blends into a different subcategory sometimes. And I see Scotch does this hugely, right? A blended Scotch is not near as good as a single malt in most people's minds, even though some of that stuff can be really, really cool, like Compass Box and some other things that are doing. And I think in other cases too, it just feels like, oh, it's a blend versus a single cask. Enthusiasts like us, we tend to just gravitate towards the single casks. There's something more alluring, and I think maybe that's why you went for those. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you right now, this Pico Canoa is phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
And it is really, really great.
So you were saying, you immediately agreed with a lot of the thoughts you had heard in advance. And I think the thing you're talking about, like, usually when I see different reviews of rums and stuff like that, there can be some agreement in dominant notes, things like that. But this might be the first time I can recall recently seeing one where like everyone was zeroing in on the same super off the wall note, which I had never encountered in rum before. And that was what I saw across so many reviews was watermelon Jolly Rancher or watermelon juice, watermelon rind. There was all this stuff about watermelon. And when I heard that, I was thinking it was going to be more in the vein. I didn't think it was going to be exactly like this, but the Savannah Her, has that like intense strawberry candy note to
me. I
it.
get fruit stripe bubble gum.
Or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost it's in a very like sharp, almost like sour kind of way.
Yeah.
And so I was expecting something a little sharper, even though watermelon is not sharp at all because it's not, it's not like a citrus fruit or something like that. But when I nosed this, I was like, first of all, yes, watermelon is
Big
like
time.
huge.
Yeah.
But second of all, it's like in a very mellow, refreshing way. This might be the most refreshing nose on a rum that I've ever smelled before. Because that's just not that's not an adjective that comes to mind a lot when I'm nosing spirits. But I think I said this in the Discord yesterday. It noses like something that should be served to you in a spa or something like that to me. Like there's also a hint of kind of like cucumber water or something like that. So it immediately kind of took me into that headspace. And we should note the breakdown really quick because I think once we see the breakdown, it might be a little clear where this influence is coming from because I've never tasted this or smelled this in any rum and certainly not any Alambique rums. But I think where this comes down to, this is a blend of both pot still and Crassel column still. The Crassel still rum was aged 25 months in new French oak and then finished for 4 months in a red wine cask. And the pot still rum went through something similar, 28 months in new French oak, finished 3 months in red wine casks. Bottled cask strength 57.7% ABV, and this one also had a larger outturn since it's a blend. This is 574 bottles total. I believe all the other ones are in the 200s. But again, that's steel and pine tank, natural fermentation, ambient yeast. So those red wine casks are what I kept coming back to. Is like maybe that's where the watermelon's coming from. I don't know.
I think it has to be. I think some of it might be the mixed in with the pine tanks there. But it's obviously we've tried the pine tanks in the Trace Años and we didn't get this note. So it has to be isolating the variable there, the red wine influence, which it's so interesting because as I'm kind of continuing to nose it, I can almost slightly pick out some red wine there.
Yeah.
Like I have to get deep into it, and I have to almost like tell myself to ignore the watermelon.
Yeah.
Like that dominant kind of feature, and then you get into it and I start to get a little bit of that same sort of that piney and red winey type of thing.
I think if I had been blindfolded or something and knows this, I would have been like, is this a watermelon eau de vie or something like that?
Yeah. It's that strong. Yeah,
it's really remarkable. Yeah, I'm excited to take another sip of this because I haven't sipped it since yesterday.
Holy shit, man. Wow, what a ride. It starts how you would think, like the nose leads into the front part of the palate there. And the front part, the front part of the palate. Oh, God, that's hard to say. Front part of the palate. There we go. And then I start to get a little bit of that influence of some of the deeper notes or the darker kind of fruity notes in there.
The stuff that I would more normally associate with a red wine cask, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I also get that new French oak influence, which I guess is imparting that kind of cinnamony, red hot, toasted oats kind of thing. That comes through like on the back palate, kind of mixed in with those deeper red wine, fruity notes. But the entry is all for me, it's like if you blended watermelon juice and cucumber water together or like watermelon juice with like a cucumber garnish. Or it just has this refreshing freshness to it that is really different and really unique.
I think you're like, I hate saying this because I really just want to make fun of you, but fuck, the cucumber water like garnish is just a perfect call.
Have you ever had one of those cocktails where they've taken like a long strip of a cucumber and then like looped it around the inside of the glass? Yeah, that would, bartenders out there, like, I know this isn't a mixing rum given the price and it's high strength at 57% ABV, which, I mean, you can put over, it's an overproof rum, so yeah, it can work in cocktails, but I bet someone could do some crazy cocktails with this. Although that watermelon note, while it's dominant in the rum, it's kind of a lighter style of note. So I don't know how much it would hold up when you throw it in with a bunch of other ingredients. But
yeah, not our expertise, but I agree with you there. I mean, those two things are really the experience here as a whole. The watermelon juice, and then that light cucumber background. And then you, like we talked about, just following through with the deeper red wine notes. It's a stunning rum.
Yeah. It, like, I try not to talk about this stuff at this point in the year, but I just feel like there's no way this isn't at least in consideration at the end of the year when I'm thinking about my favorite rums of the year. Like, again, I did not buy this the first time I ordered these other two rums, and I ordered these two rums from a store called Ace Beverage in DC, which suddenly now these DC stores are starting to ship to Tennessee, which is really nice. And yesterday after I tried this, I desperately went back to their website to see if they still had any Pico Canoa. They did not. It was sold out. But I remembered some of our DC Rum Rebel faithful Patreon subscribers. They had been talking about a store there called Potomac Wines and Spirits, and I went to their website. They did have it at $84.99, mind you.
Nice.
And they also shipped to my house. So I have a bottle of this on the way, which is another thing I wanted to point out, because I know these samples were provided to us by the producer, but like I'm forking my own money out to buy these two. Just if anyone's worried about bias or anything, putting our money where our mouths are with this rum. This is, if you see a bottle of Pico Canoa and it's gettable for you, just buy it, is my advice.
It's rare, but I think we're on the same page here. Like, I'm honestly trying to source a bottle right now.
Check out Potomac's website.
It's just so unique. Also,
yeah.
How often we talk a lot of rum, right? How often do you get something that is just this unique and this good, right? Because sometimes you get unique, but it's not good. It's just, it's cool because it's different. This is good and that unique.
Yeah. Also a very summery, warm weather kind of rum for me. So with the summer coming on, I know you're basically in summer 24/7, 365, John, but for me, this is, I don't know if this bottle's going to, make it through August once it arrives. So
get into it.
Starting strong with the Vita Nativa series.
I'm on a watermelon sugar high.
No additives, no added sugar.
No additives, no added sugar. It's like strawberry on a summer evening. No, it's more like watermelon on a summer. Two really good rums to start here, I have to say. They're fucking bringing this. Like, that's really awesome.
So we're ready to move to our first single cask, the Cañamazo. John, do you want to break down what the deal is with this rum?
Yeah, let's do it. So the Cañamazo here is the Java varietal, which we I think have had in some other ones, but this one it's still 2,500 to 3,800 feet above sea level, so it's grown up high in Santa Maria I can't even try to say that. Tlalixtac. You do such a good job with it.
I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but it's something like Talistac or something.
Talistac.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, I can get close. This one is all pine tank with ambient
all pine
yeast.
tank. So none of the steel tank fermentation.
No steel tank here, and wild yeast or ambient yeasts. So this is pot still only.
Yep.
Pine tank only. Java varietal.
Yeah.
In terms of aging, we've got 2 years in French oak and then 3 months in New Hungarian oak, which that's quite different also. And this is bottled at cask strength 59.7 ABV, and of course, no additives.
266 bottles total. So again, relative to the blend, the Pico Canoa, these have smaller quantities out there. So yeah, you can definitely just tell by the specs, this is going to be a different rum relative to the first two we started with. All pot still, all pine tank fermentation, and the inclusion of the new Hungarian oak on top of the new French oak. So really, God, the nose on this one, I absolutely love. It's so good.
Incredible. Like, so freaking different from the last one, but so inviting. It's revelatory, these how good these noses are.
It's more connected to the nose of the Trace Años for me than it is to the Pico Canoa, because I get some of those more kind of cinnamony, baking spice kind of
Baking
notes.
spices, yeah. Like, honestly, this nose is like a spiced rum.
That is a great call, actually. I hadn't thought about that at all, but it does remind me of a spice. It's like if you made a great, amazing, complex spiced rum. This nose reminds me of that.
Yeah, it's got all of those like kind of typical baking spice. What is that? It's like nutmeg and clove.
Clove, yeah.
And one more. Nutmeg, clove, and...
Oh, it might be like cardamom or something in
there.
Or
anise. No, it doesn't really give me too much licorice, though.
Yeah, I get a little bit, like a hint of anise. It's just a really inviting nose.
It is. Yeah. Like, anybody who... I love this about rum in general. Anybody who thinks they know, like, oh, this is a nose for rum, then you show them something like this, and they're just like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy compared to these last couple that we've done. It's just really, like you said, inviting, nice, but so unique and different on its own. It really, I'm getting like...
There's like a roasted quality to it as well. Like an element of fire to it, I want to say.
Yeah.
It's not smoky for me, but just toasty, roasty.
Yeah, like something that just got pulled out of an oven.
A little, like a hint of char, maybe. It's so funny because the rum we just tasted was like summer in a glass to me, and this one is like
winter.
Yeah, this is like Christmas time.
Yeah, that's a good call as well. Damn, if the other two are spring and fall, they've got something here. They mismanaged the...
Yeah.
Yeah, super, super December vibes here.
Oh, man.
Shit, this is so good.
First of all, what stands out, tasting it back-to-back with the blend, which was the Crassel Column Still and Pot Still blend. This is 100% Pot Still. Much thicker on the palate for me. I would by no means describe the Pico Canoa as thin. But it has kind of almost like a light airiness to it. This one does not. This one is like thick, like kind of oily, and
Coats your mouth in flavor.
So rich with all the stuff we were describing on the nose. It like carries over big time for me.
It does. It's very deep in terms of the flavor profile here. It's got a lot of... Gosh, I'm trying to describe like you said with the refreshing, it's the opposite of that, right? It's savory, but not savory like a meal. It's more like umami almost.
An interesting note that I'm getting on the palate, which I think speaks a little bit to the complexity of all the spices and things we were trying to describe on the nose.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Angostura bitters.
Okay. And here's where I'm trying to go with it. It's sweet enough that it's still desserty.
Yeah.
But it's still got something in there that's vegetal or savory, so it's like carrot cake.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm not getting like a lot of carrot, but that's the closest thing that I can get to with this type of a thing.
Yeah. For me, a lot of their stuff still has that backbone. It's the cane isn't lost in this, but I will say it's a background player in this rum. Like if you're the type of person who really wants aged cane juice rums to retain a lot of that fresh sugar cane stuff, like this rum to me isn't in that territory. Now, I also don't think it completely covers it all up either, because that savory component is there. It's in the background for me. But I will just say, like, I don't really care, what this was made from. It's delicious.
It's just delicious.
So just like if you take expectations of what a cane juice rum should be out of the equation, and just kind of like think about it in a vacuum, it's so tasty.
I will say for only 2% difference in ABV from the Pico, I do get more alcohol on this one. So it's not unexpected because it's a higher ABV, but it hits me a little bit more.
It's heavier, yeah. Just across the board, I would say, for sure.
And that could be, a good thing for people who are looking for that kind of association. But I would say for, newcomers, it's a little bit more present.
Yeah. All right. Let's get through these. We've got 2 more single casks to do. I'm excited to compare these because, like, these first 3 have all been very different in terms of their production or, ABV or, blending components, that kind of thing. But these last 3 are all single casks. And I know at least 2 of them are all pot still. It could be that all 3, but let me grab my next glass.
How many glasses do you have? Are you using a different glass for each one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm recycling 2 glasses, and I mention that because I had to rinse really well to get that Pico Canoa out of this one.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
So I went back in just a minute ago, and I was like, nope, needs another rinse.
So this next one is the Venado Temazate. This is, again, the Java varietal of sugarcane. Like the last rum, all pine tank fermentation, ambient yeast, all pot still. 22 months in new French oak. So a similar beginning to its life as the Cañamazo, which was 2 years in new French oaks. This one spent just under that in new French oak. But here's where it gets very different. Finished for 2.5 months in new acacia cask. So this is the first non-oak cask of these rums. Some of it was the French oak, but it has the acacia cask finishing. And I have to say, I think maybe when I was ordering these, this played into why and I'll hold up the bottle here, has this cute little deer on the label.
That's Venado is a deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I saw the acacia cask, and I don't know that I had an acacia cask rum before. And so I was curious to see what it was all about. Maybe it's in some of the other blends. I actually know, I think it is. It might be in Trace Madeiras, which is actually probably my least favorite of the Alambique blends that I've tried. So anyway, I was curious to try this one, and I'm curious to revisit it now. Very different on the nose right away, which is kind of surprising because really the biggest difference between this one and the Cañamazo is just the finishing cask. So it's new Hungarian oak versus new acacia cask. This one is a little higher strength, 62.5% ABV relative to 59.7% ABV.
Yeah.
250 bottles total for this one.
So, now I'm getting the shoe polish type of almost starting to edge into Port Morant territory.
Oh, weird. I don't get shoe polish at all.
Yeah. It's mixed in with some other things, but that's the big difference for this one for me. What's another way? So we talk about that shoe polish, or is it phenolic is the right word, I think?
Like I know what you're describing because I've tasted it in other stuff where you've said that, but I don't get that on this nose. I get more of like an herbal quality to this one. Maybe edging a little on floral to an extent.
Yeah.
But something kind of like eucalyptus-ishy, which is also something I
eucalyptus.
associate with Port Morant. So you were saying shoe polish and Port Morant. So maybe I just don't have enough shoe polish experience in my life.
When was the last time you polished your shoes?
It's been over a decade. I have a pair of boots that I used to polish, but I got too lazy and just stopped doing that. So, my dad was in the military, so I have many memories of, being in the living room watching TV and my dad polishing his boots right there. So I'm sure I have some shoe polish sense memories buried in there.
It may be that you're more familiar with shoe polish than I am, so maybe I'm misidentifying it.
Maybe that's it. One of us is the shoe polish expert. We just don't know which one. Yeah, there's a little crossover between this nose and the last one, but like very different for the most part for me. I do get kind of like a fresh apple sort of thing from this as well.
It's towards the Granny Smith side, maybe. Apple.
Yeah. Tart,
right. And then you're right to say there's some herbal quality to it as well, but I still get some of that phenolic something. The longer it's been in the glass, the less I'm getting it, which is interesting. There's also a vanilla.
Yeah. Oh, that came through on the palate big time. I just had my first sip. Different mouthfeel for this one than the last one for me. It's not quite to where I would describe it as astringent, but it's going closer to that than any of the others have. You know, that kind of feeling when you eat raw spinach that it leaves in your mouth. That kind of thing.
I feel the proof on this one.
I didn't as much on that first sip.
I do. You know, when you get something sometimes that just you lose the flavor sensation and you get burn. I think I got that. Maybe I took too big a sip, but this is the first one I've got that on so far. Not unpleasant necessarily. And then that note that I'm telling you about, that shoe polishy phenolic thing, is on the back end. I'll tell you what, though, the thing about this one's giving me the most kind of waves of flavor and coming back with different things, evolution, more than the other ones. The other ones are very good and but more straightforward, I guess.
Yeah.
This one is kind of like evolving a little bit and changing in my mouth.
This one goes to a lot of like unexpected places, I would say. It's definitely like the weirdest of the three of the three Vita Nativas for me. It also has this kind of like it has a spiciness to it that reminds me of like Szechuan pepper, that kind of like warming spice in my mouth.
This one, I don't know that I love it, but I appreciate it. If there's a distinction there, like it's a changing type of spirit that you find that people really go gaga over in some cases when this is in other rums or different spirit categories. Even like I know people gravitate towards these types of experiences where it's like, whoa, what is this kind of evolving experience in my mouth?
I'm kind of glad I have a bottle just because I want to spend more time with it and see how my opinion evolves over time. I will say this was the first one I tried when I received these two bottles. I tried the Venado Temazate first, and my initial like gut reaction was just, was hoping for something more than this. Now, my opinion has gotten more favorable as I've come back to it. But I will say that relative to this, when I tried the Cañamazo after it, I was immediately like, I'm back in, baby. Like, I was like, this is what I'm looking for. And I would still say this one, the Cañamazo, is like, to me, clearly above my enjoyment of the Venado Temazate. But I am excited to spend more time with the Venado Temazate. I'll say that much.
Yeah. I think it's worth spending the extra time with. It's not one that one sip or two sips is really going to reveal everything to you.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, it's less straightforward than the other ones, but I don't want that to be interpreted negatively. It's just different.
Sometimes you have to watch a movie or listen to an album more than once to really start to appreciate it. It might be that kind of rum.
Do you remember the name? I'm trying. It's not coming out. The name of, this is weird, but I'm going to ask. The name of the Greek ancient Greek thing that changes shape.
If you don't remember it, the odds that I'm going to remember it are very low because you're the classics guy between us.
I know. That's why I can't. It's bothering me to not remember it. But I think it was in Odysseus, the Odyssey. He like wrestled this thing, and I can't remember the freaking name of it. But that's what it's. I want to give it that name because that's what this reminds me of. Something that's changing shape constantly.
Was it Proteus?
Proteus. Yes. Thank you.
I just pulled it out of my memory. No, I Googled it. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, it was Proteus. That's exactly right. So
it was the sea god with a knack for shape-shifting.
Yes, exactly. So this reminds me. There's a whole play called the Proteus, I think, in ancient Greek. But yes, it definitely feels like that to me. It's something that you're going to appreciate for its ability to shift.
You know, as I said, this is a deer species that's on it, but it would have been awesome if there was some kind of, native chameleon species or something like that, because that would have been perfect.
You know what? I'm glad you said that because it just gave me a new note.
Lizard?
Farm animal. I shit you not. They're
like horse blanket?
The back end of this is that kind of like I don't like lick farm animals, but like if I did, I would feel like this would be what it is. Like, no, I'm serious, like goats or deer or things that are like that have this kind of
are deer farm animals?
I mean, they could be. I mean, they're crazy. If one's on a farm, it's a farm animal. No, you know what I'm talking about? Like that weird note that sometimes you get from a farm.
It does. I will say it has a little bit, especially on the entry for me. It's not, I'm going to say funk, but I don't mean like a Jamaican funk. It's not like a fruity funk. Maybe it's a farm animal funk.
It's farm animal funk. I'm telling you. That's exactly what it is. Like petting zoo.
I was literally about to say a hint of petting zoo.
Yes. Yes, that's what it is. I mean, but it's not unpleasant. Like, I know, I think of that, like, kind of smell and it's unpleasant. I don't think it's unpleasant, but it brings that up. So maybe it's aptly named here with that deer
maybe
somewhere in Mexico is in a petting zoo.
All right, let's close this out. We have the Perro de Agua, which is a very cute little nocturnal otter that is featured on this label that I liked quite a bit. Cute little guy on the label there. This takes a different turn. This is steel and pine tank fermentation. So back to that, which was in the Pico Canoa and the Trace Años. This was all pot still distillation, so it has that in common with the two single casks we just tasted. Very different on the aging front. Now we're leaning even deeper into the acacia cask, John. And I'm also seeing that apparently acacia is a type of oak because it says acacia oak on this one. So when I said non-oak earlier, I was incorrect.
Yes, you were.
Apparently acacia is oak.
God,
so
frickin' can't believe you didn't know that.
If you were shaking your fist toward your podcast player earlier when I made that mistake, you are vindicated right now. 22 months in new acacia oak, 4 months in red wine casks. This is kind of combining the influences from the Pico Canoa and then the Venado Temazate. We've got a lot of acacia cask aging and then sort of a 4-month finish in a red wine cask. Bottled cask strength at 62.9% ABV, so this is the highest strength of the series, and 262 bottles total. So I will say, when you look at this one in the glass, I should hold this up. This dark. Is the darkest one by far. So I guess I was going to say it's the acacia cask, but red wine casks can impart a darkness as well. But I mean, it is
a little red there. Yeah.
This does not look like a rum that was only aged for like 2 years and 2 months, basically. That is deep dark in the glass.
Well, interestingly, I'm getting a lot of red wine on the nose.
Yeah, those deep dark red fruits are like big time on the nose on this one.
Unavoidable. Yeah.
Very rich. Almost like a desserty type rum nose is how I would describe it.
I would agree. That's one thing that these are all have a sweet nose to them that is interesting to me.
I tell you what's interesting is I thought on the Venado Temazate, I figured that like those more herbal qualities and stuff was coming from the acacia cask, which maybe it is, but I don't get that at all on this rum. And this one spent nearly 2 years in a acacia cask.
Right. This one's got some commonalities with the Cañamazo, like that kind of baking spice. But this one I'm getting cola.
Yeah, I get that. Uh-huh. Like the baking spice is there, but it's more of those like deep dark red fruits, like stewing. And yeah, cola vibe is a good call, which also fits with the color of it.
Yeah.
It's like almost the color of, like Coke or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we allowed to say that on this podcast without getting charged?
I think so, because, Coke can mean multiple things.
I'm going to skip right past that part, what you said. It's a nice nose. If we had started here somehow, I think I would have been more appreciative of it. But it's a little bit more straightforward. It actually reminds me of some Foursquare ECS red wine cask releases.
I could see that.
Not identical, but like I could have been fooled into thinking that this was something along that vein. It's more familiar. Yeah, you would think that you would get more of the cinnamon or whatever that is from the acacia, and I'm not getting it here. It's very mild.
It's. Yeah. I just took my first sip and very rich on the palate.
It is really good. This feels like comfort to me. I'm getting much more of what I usually expect from a high ABV single cask rum, and I'm not surprised by any of it. Like it feels down like a pitch that was down the middle strike.
Yeah, I honestly, this is the first one, and I know I talked about this earlier, I think with the Cañamazo, when I was talking about the cane not being totally hidden on that one. Mm-hmm. I'm having a really hard time getting the cane on this one.
Yep.
If I had tried this blind, I think I would have guessed it as a molasses rum.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying is I really find a lot of commonalities to a Foursquare ECS rum with this.
Definitely, like I got to know what these red wine casks are that they got, because like just 4 months in a red wine cask, like producing these flavors, maybe it's just the combination of that and the acacia, but very...
Well, sometimes a cask can, take in a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe like, the climate, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but...
Well, and then you had the other red wine casks, like presumably throwing this watermelon vibe on the Pico Canoa, and like this doesn't have that at all.
No. No.
Really, really delicious though. This is like
It is good.
This is my last drink of the night kind of rum, and I'm gonna pour myself a glass, and I'm gonna drink it over like a hour and a half period, because it's just rich, kind of decadent.
It's got the spice on this one too.
Yeah, it's definitely not as spicy to me as the last two. Mm-mm. I feel like the wine kind of smooths that out, but you just get like waves of that rich dark fruit. Really delicious.
It is. It's really, really good. It's less surprising. I'm trying to balance these out as we talk about them because we're being so effusive in our praise. They're all good. So you have to kind of try to pull out or tease out some of what could be the potential differentiator or I don't want to say negative because it's really not bad. It's not a bad thing. But the differentiator here is this is a lot more of what I would expect. Again, I agree with you. This, I would have said molasses rum, but it tastes like something in that vein that I'm used to, that I enjoy, that is comforting. It's just well executed.
Yeah, and it has a little bit of that like cola, like very slight cherry cough syrup kind of vibe to it for me. Okay, well, do we want to rank our Vita Nativa favorites? I will say there's one more. We weren't able to get a sample of this one. The Tepes Quintle, I believe that's going to be my attempt at the pronunciation. I'm not sure if that's correct. But this one was selected by Jay West, who was on the Rumcast a few years back. part of the aficionados group, and try to pick out what's different. This one kind of seems more closer to the Cañamazo, because it's 24 months in new French oak, 4 months in new Hungarian oak. So that's that same combination as the Cañamazo. Also all pot still, but steel and pine tank fermentation. So not all pine tank like the Cañamazo. But we don't have that one to taste. Would love to hear thoughts if any of you have tasted it out there. But I think we can, this is still a mostly complete guide to the the Vita Nativa series. Okay, are we ready to rank these? Let's just should we go 1 to 4 or 4 to 1? What do you think?
Wait, we have 5.
Well, the Trace Años isn't part of the
Okay.
Vita Nativa, so I was gonna kind of put that one to the side. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
Let's go 4 to 1.
Let's 4 to 1, right?
Yeah. Least favorite to most favorite.
Yeah.
Hit me with your least favorite.
All right, I don't think it'll be too much of a surprise. I'm gonna go with the Venado Temazate as my least favorite, but still really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking for something that evolves, you want that one.
I'm in agreement with you on that. That's the one I would put at the bottom of mine. Not by no means bad. I'm glad I have a bottle, and I'm going to keep going back to it, but can't compete with the highs of the others for me. My third, I'm actually going to go with Perro de Agua for my next, the one we just tried. I'll put that one there. Again, really, really great, decadent, rich, tasty, very comforting, but just missing a little bit of that cane character. I wish it was in there. I wish I picked up on it a little bit more. So, but by no means a rum that I would be dissatisfied with. I actually wish I had a bottle of that because I don't currently, but very delicious.
I'm not mad at it at all. I really, really, really like it, but I'm gonna put it there also, just because I think, like we said, it's more familiar. So I'm putting the other two ahead of it. Okay.
So we're in lockstep so far. Okay. So it comes down to what's your favorite between the Pico Canoa and the Cañamazo, which are very different rums.
They really are, and like we said, one is winter vibe, one is summer vibe. I'm going to go with the Pico Canoa as my favorite.
Damn you.
So.
We're exactly the same. Yeah. I've got Pico Canoa number 1. I actually feel like it might be the same level of enjoyment as the Cañamazo, but it's so unique, and I've just never had anything like it before that I have to put Pico Canoa at number 1. So again, the blend is coming out on top.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think the Cañamazo is I think these are my 2 favorite Alambique Serrano rums I've ever had, which is saying something because I picked a different Alambique Serrano rum as my favorite rum from last year before I had these. So just on the Cañamazo and the Pico Canoa alone, just like incredibly impressive rums,
really
if I'm being honest. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think the Cañamazo and the Perro de Agua are closer for me. I don't know if that's that way for you, or you feel like Cañamazo is a solid number 2.
It's a solid number 2 for me. Yeah. Okay. If I were like putting these in tiers, I actually think I would have the Pico Canoa and the Cañamazo in the same tier. To me, they're both that impressive. It's just the Pico Canoa is just like a one of one rum. Like, I can't even really think of other rums that remind me of it at all.
Agreed.
And I could get there with Cañamazo and some other rums. But they're in the same tier because they're both like amazing. Then I think I would have the Perro de Agua in a tier 2 and the Venado Temazate in a tier 3, but with the possibility of moving up into tier 2 on repeated tastings. We'll have to see.
Right. Whereas I would put tier 1 as Pico Canoa, and then tier 2 I would have both the Cañamazo and the Perro de Agua.
That's fair.
And then tier 3 the Temazate. So we're close, but we're not identical. I think the Cañamazo and the Perro de Agua comes down to mood for me.
Yeah.
Of what I'm more interested in. Whereas like you said, for all the reasons you said, the Pico Canoa just being as unique as it is, I kind of have to put it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, just going back, when you called the Cañamazo like kind of tasting like a spiced rum. I feel like that was so spot on.
Yeah.
Like the purest form of a spiced rum ever.
Yeah.
They somehow like they achieved it without actually adding
spices.
anything to the rum. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. All right. Well, I'd love to hear if you've tried some of these rums. If you're listening, you've tried these. What have been your favorites? Like, we've pretty much just been gushing the entire episode about these rums. So, like, are we being too effusive in our praise? Are you right there with us? Let us know. Send us an email, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST @rumcast.com. Or you can always let us know your thoughts on social media. John, where can they find us?
At the Rumcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. So we are posting there for our new episodes, and every now and then we'll post something else. We try not to, put a bunch of stuff out there into the internet. I know a lot of people who make content do that, but we try to respect people's feeds and just let them know when there's something worth listening to. You like that turn?
Respect the feed.
Respect
I like it.
the feeds.
I like
of people.
All right.
Yeah, but hit us up on any of those platforms if you want to talk PM, DM, whatever it's called nowadays that the young kids are calling it, and talk to us about Alambique Serrano. Let us know what your favorite is. If you're a Temazate fan and why we are wrong, we want to hear from you. Like, seriously, we love to hear differentiating opinions and why things are different than what we thought and what our take was.
And if you're someone who did not like Pico Canoa, I want to hear from you because I want to change your mind. So let us know. This was really fun. Shout out to Alambique Serrano for really delivering with this series in my mind.
Yeah.
And
PM Spirits.
Yeah, PM Spirits for bringing them in. Can't wait to see what they do next. But John, I think that's it for this episode. So until next time, cheers.
Cheers.